Hey everybody, it's Margitt. Thank you for joining me. This is video number 4 on my fibroid journey. I'm so grateful that you're here. And for all of you who are leaving comments on Facebook, who are liking this video, who are sharing it, I am full of gratitude and thank you so much for your love and support. It is healing me on so many different levels. Today, as I'm preparing to tape this video, I am full with many tears. I guess this journey there's still healing that I'm doing. I'm getting to where I begin the dark night of the soul and really start where the fibroids are taking me to the forest where I have to really do some deep healing work. I don't have to, but I did. And I'm grateful for all of it. So I've been teary-eyed. I hope not to be teary-eyed during this video. But yeah, I just feel a little bit dark today, and I'm just so grateful for this. For my goal was to just tell my story, so hopefully I can help another woman so they don't feel alone during a process of dark night of the soul, or with bleeding or fibroids, or being scared about a diagnosis. And you have given it all back to me, and am able to continue to unravel this, which I probably will for the rest of my life, even though I feel like I'm out of that darkness. But once in a while there is some tears that will continue, so thank you so much. So in my last video I talked about the Uranus opposition that I had learned about. It was kind of like my midlife crisis, and really having to look at my past, my childhood, and my future. I think a lot of us Gen Xers are going through this dark night of the soul where we're having to heal our past and our lineage wounds. Looking at your past, you're having to look at your childhood. And I think a lot of us in my generation lived with a lot of fear, that fight or flight or freeze. Just talking to my peers at the same age, that we kind of all experienced this as children. And when you live in that kind of environment through the years, it really has impact on your life, especially your body. So I started to look at that. I started to do some shaman work, some therapy, and began to have new friends around the shamanic community, started a meditation practice. And I was doing really well until around 2011. And my period started getting heavy again. I was very exhausted. My children were older, so I was driving. I spent a lot of time in their car, getting them to school and their activities. I always said that I was going to write a book about about my life, the single married mom. There was a lot of women of my generation who were at home with their children while their husbands were traveling. And so a lot of that burden of the home came upon us women. So that was a lot. It was a lot to hold, and my period was getting worse. And so I started seeing a new OB-GYN. He was recommended from my friends, and he was more holistic. And I told him that my bleeding is getting heavy again, and I have fibroids, so I really like to get an ultrasound and to see how we can heal this. And he said, oh, if he was going to take a look at my thyroid and adrenals, which were, just shit, and from all the stress in my life. And he said, we'll fix those, we'll fix your hormones, and you'll be fine. So I trusted him. I continued to take these supplements that did absolutely nothing for me, and wasted tons of money, and my periods got worse, and I was beginning to wear night pads during the day, and change those every 1 to 2 hours. So I told him about that, and then I bought a Diva cup because I was going through so much pads that the garbage was like heavy, and I'm like, this is not normal. So the Diva cup was supposed to hold a lot of blood, and I was changing that every 45 minutes to an hour. So I got really, really scared. I went to my holistic doctor, who is very well known in the Metro Detroit area. I had seen him because of my stomach issues, and he checked my blood. My hemoglobin was 7, and he said, what is your OB-GYN doing? You need a hysterectomy. And he was worried that my anemia was so low that I was going to begin to have organ failure. So I was in shock. Here is a very well-respected holistic doctor that is telling me I need a hysterectomy. It was the biggest, one of the, well, I've had many blows, but that was a huge blow. I just felt like I was blindsided, just fall right down, crushed. In the meantime, every time I started driving down my old neighborhood, I began to feel like this choking sensation. Our kitchen was kind of falling apart. We needed to remodel or redo something in our kitchen. And long story short, we ended up wanting to move and just put the money that we would invest in the kitchen into a newer house. Then I had a lot of shamanic friends, which I still do, which I love very much. And we used to play. We used to have vision board parties, and we used to sit in circle and share, and it was just beautiful. And I remember making a vision board in 2012 with a kitchen with people around it cooking, and I kind of manifested that brand new kitchen, and that was in the later of 2012. So in 2012, my son was getting ready to go to high school, and that's one thing about me is every time my children would go to a next chapter in their life, it was very difficult for me. I did a lot of grieving and just kind of had to flip the page, but it took a while before I would flip it and then be okay for the next chapter. So in August, we finally got him a high school that we thought would be a well fit, and he was on his way. I just couldn't believe that I was going to be a mother of a high schooler, completely ignoring, the anemia, the hemoglobin 7.0, and all of the bleeding, because there was so much else going on in my life that I had to hold, and I was so good at ignoring myself. So I continued to just go through it, and the 1 week in August where my son started high school, he started driver's training on the Monday. He started high school on a Tuesday. My father got diagnosed with cancer on a Wednesday. My house went up for sale on that Tuesday, and my house was sold on that Sunday. And I will never forget that week as long as I live, because by the time it was over, we had to find a new house, and I couldn't even breathe. That was the only thing. I felt like I had just been slammed so many times against a brick wall that the only thing I could really do is try to breathe. We got everybody situated. My dad started chemotherapy and radiation, which completely broke my heart. And my son started high school, which was enough for me. And I remember moving in October. I'm sorry for the tears. Moving in October, and the blood was just gushing down, just gushing. And I had to do something because this was getting it was probably the worst the bleeding had ever been. So I went back to my OB-GYN, and she was pleasant. She was very happy to see me, and she's just so peaceful and calming, and she never judges. And so we did an ultrasound, and I came back, and she says they've grown bigger, and she started to talk about hysterectomy or chemical menopause, and I just turned numb. I couldn't handle anything else. So I remember leaving the office with a pamphlet for a prescription drug out there that causes menopause that might take away some of the bleeding. And I just knew that my body could not handle any kind of procedure. It could not handle menopause right now, and it could not handle a surgery. I just knew that intuitively. I just knew that in my deepest heart that I could not do this. I was trying to breathe, and my body would not be able to take it. And so I went to an herbalist, because now my daughter has her period and she's suffering from cramps. And so I brought her to an herbalist that has helped her. I went into the herbalist and I said, I got these growing fibroids and I need to do something about it. And she says, you have to be serious. And I said, okay. And so with everything else going on, I'm taking tinctures, I'm shoving herbs like in a vaginal suppository up my crotch. I'm trying to keep a clean diet. In the meantime, my son, I'm trying to get him, he's not very good with change. He's a very strong-willed indigo. Him situated in high school, and my dad is going through the treatments. It was very difficult, and we're in a new house. It was very, very difficult, but I knew that this was the right path for me. So my life was shaken up, and this was the beginning of going into the dark night of the soul. And I also knew at this time that I needed to join this woman's circle that this doctor had been telling me about. I told you she first told me when I was going through that Uranus opposition. Well, she had called every year in my house to join this woman's circle. So I called the beautiful, beautiful dear sister and mentor, who I will respect for the rest of my life with deep, deep gratitude. And I joined this sisterhood, this beautiful circle of sisters that I am just so grateful that I was able to call them in, because this was just the beginning. And it was like my life was setting me up to do the big work. So I did that. I started the Changing Woman Sisterhood, and I began to heal from the herbs and the tinctures. And what this told me, what this has showed me, is that I'm not supposed to do this work alone. I needed to get my tribe. I needed to get people that are like me to help me heal on this journey. I had to have the courage to listen to my body and to listen to myself. Absolutely new concept. Never paid attention to myself. Didn't know how to do that, but I really had to begin to do that. And the fibroids led me to an herbalist, which I learned a lot about my body, a lot about fibroids. She taught me so much about herbs and how they were reacting with my body. She also led me to the very beginnings of sacred sexuality, which I'm so grateful for, and begin to connect with my body. There was a lot of changes going on with my daughter too, and I joined the sisterhood thinking that I was doing this for her. That I was going to break these chains, because I did not want her to suffer, because she was already suffering from cramps, and I did not want her to suffer in the way that I had. And so, but joining the sisterhood and doing that work really was for both of us. For me to heal so that I can heal the 7 generations before and after me. And the one biggest thing that this fibroid has taught me is that I'm not to do this kind of work alone. I felt so alone for so many years, and once I was able to have the courage to move forward, I had the courage to ask for help, and that was a new thing, because we didn't ask for help in our family or in our surroundings. We just martyred through a lot of things alone, and it took a lot of courage to say, I'm weak and I need help. So that was huge. And to ask people for help that are willing to give their time and their love without trying to fix you with their advice, which was a completely different way of being for me. So I knew that I had called it in for all of these experiences. So that was setting me up for 2016, which was the year of just death. I will put that in my next video, because that's pretty heavy. And that's when the things were really starting to turn, and the fibroids were starting to continue to teach me. So thank you so much for listening in this video. If you like it or you want to leave a comment, please do. And I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much for your love and support. Till next time, thank you. Bye-bye.